entire week, the entire country has been fascinated with the story of a buck tormenting a Gasparilla family. The media has been very thorough in its coverage, but we've decided to take things on a different angle. Why not have intelligent conversation with some valued stakeholders in the matter who can give us some incredible insights from multiple perspectives? Some people still don't know who or what a buck is. Some people aren't aware that there actually exists what will be our feature presentation, a film by none other than Mr. Stephen M. Taylor, who joins me as part of the panel.
Thanks for having me.
Also joining us this afternoon will be Ms. Tillah Springer, writer and researcher, to give us a little bit more insight on the historical origins thereof.
Thank you for having me.
We are also joined by Reverend and Counselor Clifford Rawlins, who will give us some spiritual expertise.
Hello everyone.
And providing journalistic insight, we have TTT reporter Marie Hub.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here in the panel with such insights and looking forward to our discussion.
So Stephen, this has been done long before any media story broke, but what would have inspired you to decide to follow the story of a buck?
To me, I've always been fascinated about kind of our untold stories. You know, as children growing up, you always get the pieces, and normally it's told to scare you. You know, don't go there because this, you will see this or you'll see that. So as I was exploring it as a thesis film, I went to the UE film program. I wanted to take a journey down a path where I like horror films, I like thrillers, and why not do something that scares me? So I remember one day in QREP, after class, I was walking on the road, and I met two fellas who happened to be from Guyana, and then we were having a conversation, and the buck came out from that talk. Right. And I went home and I was like, hey, maybe I can work on this. And I worked with Stephanie Matadine. We came up with a story in an afternoon, and then I sat down and wrote it. It's basically how it developed.
Now, the persons who may not have seen the show, I'm not going to start out too much for them, but this is one part of our folklore. Does that mean that we can look forward to more of these coming?
I mean, yeah, there are a lot already. That's the thing, you know. The film festival has been around for a while, and they've been providing a platform for filmmakers to present work. I've seen short films like The Duens. I have seen a number of Suknya-related or themed films. So this is not the first. This is just the first one, I think, right now that's getting that kind of attention. And my hope is that we will continue looking to local filmmakers to reveal the stories that we have hidden for so long.
So Tillah, as someone who has extensive knowledge in our folklore because of your research, and that is, how can you tell us the buck came into Trinidad folklore?
You know, every civilization has mythology. Every civilization, in the chaos that is going on of existence, you have to find ways to make sense of it. And so you create stories around which to help you survive. So the stories that help us survive are the ones that, you know, the ones that then get passed on. Somebody, somewhere along the line, decides whose mythology is the supreme mythology and whose mythology becomes the truth, right? So we have folklore, which comes from all the different people who find themselves here. Baku or buck comes from Mbaka, which is a Kikongo word, which means bewitched spirit or animal. So if you look at the coverage, you'll see that people said things in the newspapers, for example, like, yeah, you know, it's based on Yoruba belief system. It's based on a character called Abiku. And then you see somebody else say something else about how it has something to do with West African pygmies, but pygmy short races are from Central Africa. And so that's a completely different, so you know that there's a kind of lumping together of anything that has to do with Africa, because we are not trained to see Africa as valuable and viable in terms of spirituality or in terms of creating stories for us to make sense of the world. So when a story like the buck comes about, which is a totally perhaps valid way of seeing the world, it then becomes a question of ridicule, and it then becomes a question of people making up things or going on Google and looking up one thing that's been written by somebody and not really doing any research. Like, there's so many different subtleties that need to be explored and need to be investigated. And, and then the other thing that happens is that there is this very Western/Christian reading of it, which then delegitimizes the reality, and it then gets interpreted as demonic. Mythology is really important for us to understand who owns mythology and who has the right to say what is real and what is not real.
So coming off of Attila identifying some gaps perhaps or inaccuracies in the initial reports or multiple reports, Marie, could you give us a basic rundown on what was happening with this Gasparilla family?
Earlier this week, again, reporting on this Gasparilla family, they said they were experiencing some sort of supernatural being in their house. They basically were saying, they termed it a buck, from their understanding. They said they were threatened by this buck for the past 2 years, which to me seems like a very long time. Reported this particular story, every day you got something new. As in more information, there was a voice recording clip of what this alleged superhuman being or the buck, if I can use that term, sounds like, and what the buck has been threatening. They said, this buck has been threatening the family. He wants certain things, certain favors from the family. And throughout the days, you hear, basically this family has husband, wife, child, or teenager rather. And you're hearing that the teenager was attacked, who allegedly sucked his toe. The buck allegedly sucked his toe. He was allegedly injured. Right. So you're hearing a lot of reports coming out of what is happening with this story. And the public was interested. From a business point of view, they've been marketing on that. A lot of people have been tuning on social media. They even created a Twitter account for the character itself. But what I thought was missing is that not really understanding what a buck is and what a buck allegedly does.
We will probably be seeing a bit more of this in the media, I suppose, for the coming weeks, perhaps?
In terms of understanding the folklore, I hope so.
Now, switching things up a bit from the facts to something that not everybody is sharing the same opinion on. Reverend, could you give us a little insight onto the possible implications, if any, of dabbling in this sort of realm, so to speak?
Well, again, to lead off from what Attila was saying, every civilization has stories and mythologies and so on. And a lot of them are similar, just similar characters with different names and so on. And somewhere along the line, one gets singled out as the superior one. And, in our particular situation, because of our history, Western Christianity has the upper hand and has tended to demonize everybody else's experience. Anything outside of that Judeo-Christian deposit, as it were. Perhaps we tend to over-intellectualize a particular situation. There's a theological term that comes to mind called Sitzenleben, a German term that really means the lived experience of the people. More than mythology and folk. These people experience something, and people have been experiencing a very personal attack in this particular way. And there have been several stories throughout the country at various times. The ordinary folk seem to know about it and know people who mine a buck for so to speak and feed it and so on for financial gain or economic profit and that sort of thing. So we can't discount the people's lived experience. But what really needs to be done is, is at least from a spiritual point of view, is a kind of investigation, really to see what is it, who is it real? I understand that several number of people from various religious backgrounds went down and performed quote-unquote exorcisms and so on, right. And the thing kept coming back. But what really concerns me is, was any kind of proper investigation done to find out what is it, or who is it, and what it has been causing, because the majority of time, a lot of things we consider demonic attacks or demonic possession of people and places and so on, really stem from either mental illness or medical breakdown and so on. So it needs to be, medically examined as well as psychologically examined, to really understand, what's going on here, and then we can proceed. But we don't know, and everybody's just talking in a vacuum and talking from their head and, talking literally out of folklore.
Correct.
And not out of any kind of scientific basis. So we really need to know what's going on, what is it and what's going on.
Here we have almost two very opposing views, because the first thing that you did for me was validate that this is someone else's experience and their version of the thing. So whether or not it's good, evil, or bad, all of these things are irrelevant. And we have agreement where you're saying that there is literally someone's experience making this valid, whether or not it's true or not. This is necessary. Now, can you agree then that had we reported this differently, and we being the media generally, had there been that initial research, had there been that initial input from experts like yourselves, that the reception of this information be different?
Oh, I mean, obviously it would be different, but maybe it's not so bad that it was reported the way it was done, because we have stories to tell. I remember hearing my maternal grandmother and her sisters, my great aunts and so on, talk about a sukunya that was on top of the house, and one of my great aunts' husband, he had a shotgun and he came out. They heard something, creaking on the galvanized one night, late into the night. It woke them up. They came out to see what it was. Uncle Hamill shot at something up on the roof, and they saw this bright light fly off the roof. And I don't think four of them would be lying.
Right.
I wasn't there. I mean, but they and they told this story to us, and and all the other cousins and grandchildren and everybody around. And people have stories, that may be linked to other mythology, but that's what folklore is: the law of the people, the law of the folk, the stories of the people. And we all have stories to tell, and and stories about entertaining,
They're also about passing on. They're also about passing on tradition, and they're also about keeping order. And that's the other thing as well. Yes. It's about keeping order. And I feel like at the crux of this conversation that's going on with this family, it's a question of resources. Because there is this energy that is trying to rob this family of its resources. And,
and it's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to do the opposite. Right? It's supposed to do the opposite.
That's why it's a problem.
Yes.
1. 2, the whole manner in which the story is reported, I feel it reeks of a bit of townism. Yes. And, it's like, oh gosh, look at these people in the country, they know nothing about nothing, they take it. And I feel like that is insincere, and it is wrong for us to do that to people. I feel like we are, part of the way that it is reported is robbing these people of their dignity and creating a bit of a freak show of something that a lot of people, an experience that a lot of people share.
But when you say the way it's reported, is it the line of questioning? Is it the editing? Because for me, for the most part, they sort of did it documentary style in terms of, here is the camera, this is a question, we are going to record it. There was limited
even in terms
editing
of like the stories that come out, like, so, they did an exorcism, and then the buck come back and suck the people, the child too. Right. So it's like, it's like,
but if
what's going to happen
if that's
next?
a direct quote.
So it's like a kind of serialization of
that's
families.
A direct quote, though,
but I also feel like because of the navel-gazing nature of social media as well, there is an element of, exploiting people's trauma, or exploiting people's lack of understanding of what's going on with them to make news.
But going back to you, Marie, just from the journalistic standpoint, do you think, as he's mentioned, there is a reason that we've seen more of this story being covered than other reported instances of such unnatural phenomena?
Well, it's a human interest story. As the Reverend mentioned, a family is being affected. And the role of the media is actually to share your story, share the people's story. So a lot of people would be interested to find out what is exactly happening with this family. every night something new is happening with them, and they are actually coming out and telling their story. And some people may, even if they may have experienced it, because I'm not, I can't speak to what has happened with a buck, but some people could connect with it. So I believe that's the reason why it's been in the, I would say, the media out there in the public's eye to want to know more about it. Right. But as the Reverend mentioned, it is important to have that factual, that scientific, and that spiritual understanding of what is actually taking place.
And now, as she's saying, people are interested in finding out that story. Stephen, finding out the story that you decided to tell is a little bit, dark, and probably lends itself to why people would have sensationalized things along the lines of that negative realm. But what was the story that you hoped people got from it, apart from just the awareness of our culture?
So for me, in my opinion, I just feel like in school, there wasn't enough folklore or mythology or anything like that class. I was learning about the Greeks and Romans. Right. So now when this is at the forefront and we've heard it and talked about it at, dinner tables or at the bar, this is the first time that the media and everybody, we're trying to get to the bottom of this thing that we've been told, stories about forever. Yeah. So for me, this is also the first time where we have somebody coming to the forefront and sharing a personal story.
Well, from the current sensation to one that took the film festival by storm, based on a chance encounter with your Guyanese brethren, the people want to know what your version of the book is about. Let them know what they're about to see.
So what you're about to see is A Labor of Love, a film that was done 7 years ago. It was a thesis film done with friends passionate about filmmaking and telling our stories. Buck the Man Spirit. But before we go to the film, I really have to thank every single person, cast and crew, volunteers, PAs, and of course our mentors and lecturers at the University of the West Indies for helping us present to you Buck the Man Spirit. Hide your remote.
You know the hardware of the road?
Yeah.
By Chalo Junction?
The upstairs, downstairs house.
Right. How do you think them get big so fast? Scrap will smoke it, man.
You take it, man?
Nah, I can't do that. It find you.
Where up your man? I think a buck by cheek. A what? A buck.